remember when you could walk into a place on a Friday night and just peruse? You could scan the shelves, touch the boxes, but sometimes you knew exactly what you wanted. You'd go to that, you'd grab it, and you'd run. Well, you'd pay, and then you'd run. Sometimes all you had to go on, though, was what was on the cover. Some crazy painting of a barbarian or a cave woman with big tits or a little boy and his dog or some crazy clown animal or monkey playing a little snare drum in the horror section, or maybe something a little bit spicier behind the beaded curtain in the corner. Remember that, Rick?
I remember all that. That was my Tuesday. That was $1 or $1.50. Those are the days when you would rent 4, watch 2 of them, and then try to get them back before midnight so that you could rent 2 more. That's what a fucking nerd I was. That's the way I did it. If it was the summer and I had time to watch movies, boom, that's what I did. It was a back and forth kind of thing, and I loved it. And it was I miss it. I miss that camaraderie. I miss going into a place and perusing like that. It's something that you don't have with streaming. Streaming is just you're going through a little picture on a box. There's no, I don't know, maybe this is just the old guy in me, and it's something that a lot of us people from this generation do, that sense of adventure. You and I have talked about going to the library and falling into the stacks, and that was the original rabbit hole. That was the falling into something and coming out of it hours later. A stack of books in your hands, videos, CDs, whatever, to go back and explore even further. It's a sense of going out that has been lost now, and I don't like it. I really don't like where we're at, because I remember a better time. I remember running into people doing that, and then you run into fellow nerds like yourself who might lead you on a different path, or you might lead them. The arguments that would ensue. It was just wonderful. It was just wonderful, and I feel bad for these kids who have never experienced it and never will.
There was something sleazy about it.
Oh, very much so.
But that was part of it, and I don't know if it's just the dust on the fucking box, the dust on the shelf, which is different from, you had your blockbusters,
mm-hmm.
which were cleaned and well lighted, and they sold snacks, and they had like multiple copies of a popular movie that was out. There were those, and we had those memberships. But there were also the mom and pop stores. There was the little hole in the wall place that had all these weird little horror movies, or it had all these like trauma films that were like exploitation films, but now in painting form, just on the cover, where they were these like scantily clad women and super buff men, and everyone looks fucking oiled up, or they look fucking really like faded, or there's a poster of fucking Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 that it looks like it's not going to last another year, because even though a lot of sunlight doesn't hit the inside of that store, that picture's just going to disintegrate and fade away. And it just looks fucking sleazy somehow, all of it. Because it's like, next to the horror section is the fucking 80s erotic thriller section, and you have fucking some blonde fucking psycho chick, like, that she's going to go after the Michael Douglas wannabe. And maybe it's interesting, but I'm going to pass. Let me go to this one about chihuahuas that kill. I'm gonna go for that movie. I haven't seen that one yet. You're gonna get a lot of shit, but you're gonna get some treasures in there.
Yeah.
And then you walk in and it's like, fuck, like, I know that they have one copy. I know they have one copy of that other version of Silence of the Lambs before Silence of the Lambs. But I don't remember what it's called. And I have to walk up to the person at the counter and ask them, all right, you know this movie that's blah, blah, blah. What's it? Because I can't look it up online because online's not online for me yet. I'm not online. And if the person doesn't know, you're fucked. So you get something else. If the person knows, they go, oh, it's this, it's over there, or it should be over there, or yeah, it's this, but we rented it. All of that sounds maybe like a pain in the ass. Like, why the fuck would you dinosaur fucking zombies go out there and deal with all that? Why don't you just fucking press the button? And it's like, no, man, it's not the same. I have an actual thing that I can hand you, and I go, take this. And you put that shit in your bag, and you go home. You open that bag, and you open that box, and it's like your birthday, or it's like Christmas, or whatever the fuck you celebrate. Whatever materialistic holiday you celebrate, it's that. Because you can open up a thing, and you can put a thing in another thing. And you turn on another thing, and you sit on another thing, and you watch. Versus, like you said, it's just a fucking, it's just a pixel. And a lot of this is nostalgia, but I spend more time, if at all, I spend more time scrolling through the fucking options than I do watching shit on streaming services.
Yeah, that tends to be the case.
But it's not the same like going to a fucking why is it that when I go shopping with Leslie, and Leslie hates shopping with me, because I go to where I can go sit down somewhere if possible, because I get really tired. But if we're going somewhere and there's a bookstore, if and fucking when, good luck. If anything, it's gonna be a fucking Barnes and Noble. Then she can go off and do all these other fucking stores, and I can just stay in the Barnes and Noble, and I don't get tired. And in a video store, you would go in, and there was a sense of discovery, because you're gonna be picking up, looking at things, looking at the back, who's in it, what's the artwork look like, I don't know, like what's going on, what's fucking situated around it. That means something too somehow. Versus, I'm fucking on the couch scrolling. I'm just kind of like, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just fucking scrolling, and it just feels like I'm wasting fucking time. Then you end up clicking on something just because you feel like you have to. It's not the same.
It absolutely is not the same.
So that was episode 328. The rise and fall of the video store. The last blockbuster was a documentary that we looked at. We looked at Rewind This. We'll be looking at other stuff that's kind of adjacent to that, because that's kind of like where we live. But fun episode, fun experience. I mean, I could probably do one of these episodes every week, just because it's so rich.
Memory lane is a great thing to go down, and it's like when you're talking to people, every once in a while you'll be working with somebody who is roughly your age, within a decade or so, and you will inevitably go back to days of yesteryear, and you'll talk about those things that you remember, and it's fun because you see how important something was to you, and sometimes you don't even realize how important something is to you until you start talking to somebody else about it, and you hear their reflection on it, and it fortifies what you believed. But then you're talking to people who have no idea. Like we've talked about how, what was it that we were talking about? We were talking about some movie watching experience where these kids have no idea, but they're not sad about it because they've never known it. They've
Yeah.
never known a movie experience that was.
I think it was related to this. It was
Yeah.
related to the act of fucking like putting a video on a VCR,
Mhm.
a video cassette.
I mean, think about how cool that. I remember getting up and going to Tower Records when it opened. I wanted to be there when it opened, like 9 or 10 o'clock, because you know, in your head, you wanted to get there before everybody else did, so you had a better shot at getting the movie that you wanted. Grabbing it, knowing exactly where it was going to be on the shelf, grabbing it, checking it out, and that ride home, where it's like, that ride home couldn't be fucking longer. I want to get home so I can watch this. And then, you know, you're watching on that little 26-inch TV, or you had the TV with the VCR on it. You had to still hook it up.
Well, I had both.
Yeah. Well, I had the top loader. I had the fucking top loader video. I mean, it was something that was, I love the fact that was my childhood. I love the fact that this was an aspect of it, and it was changing the game. But if you look at it, people of that time who are our age now, who loved movies then, were disgusted by it because it was robbing you of the movie watching experience. It meant that slowly, and they were right, slowly the big theaters, the movie palaces would go under, and then you would have the multiplex screens that would take over, which are still kind of hanging on today. But if you've never been in one of those 1,000-seaters, if you've never been to the Cinerama Dome, if you live in LA and you've never been to the Cinerama Dome or Grauman's Chinese Theater, or God, there were a couple theaters in Westwood that were really huge. I think at the Fox Theater in Westwood. That's a whole different movie watching experience, where you don't have the sounds of some other bullshit bleeding into your screen. That was magic. That was an unbelievable movie watching experience that most people going to the movies today will never know. They'll never know that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right here in front of us on the fucking TV.
Yeah, easily accessible.
And it's just easily accessible, but the search is just it's different now. It's just not the same, and I look at a Netflix and I don't. I mean, I see all this other like shit, and then I see. I also see like stuff that it's like, oh, recommended for you, but it's like sometimes you want to break out of that.
Yeah.
So the recommended for you is like you can only go in one section of the fucking store because the fucking clerk is like, no. I know what you like. Go here. Go over here. So, okay. And then they fucking like create a partition. And that's cool if it's like, yeah, I like that stuff. But then after a certain point, you're kind of like, yeah, but I've already seen like all of this, and I want to see something else. So it's that much harder to sometimes like make that leap from your area to the next fucking thing. And then what happens now? Now it's like fucking, now you're stuck on that side because the fucking, I mean, not necessarily with streaming, but like with Instagram, you look at fucking one video of whatever random thing, and then now it thinks that you're obsessed with that, and it's like, here, this is all I'm gonna fucking show you, and it's like, I just fucking clicked on this thing, I didn't even know what it was. Like, I don't even like baseball, or I don't want to see fucking like someone pop a pimple like on every fucking thing that I'm scrolling through, like, or the signs of, well, as to why you may have this disease or whatever it is. Or going back to the thing, like the woman's breasts, like, yes, breasts are cool. But like, there's a law of diminishing returns, and the algorithm just keeps feeding you whatever fucking like the last thing was. And it's kind of like, on the one hand, yeah, I like what I like, but I also like, I don't want to burn myself out of fucking whatever music thing I like.
It's also a matter
I don't
of,
want to burn myself out.
yeah, pay attention to the shit that you do like and the lessons learned. We were talking off mic earlier about trying out new places, food. It's the Anthony Bourdain lesson. You have to try. You have to eat bad meals in order to find a good meal. You have to see bad movies in order to find a good one. You have to dig through shitty songs in order to find great ones. That's life. Otherwise, you're stuck doing one thing all the time, and eventually, that thing that you do and love, you will grow to become bored with. So you have to give yourself some time away from that which is comfortable, is easy, and feels good. You really have to challenge that's life, though. You really have to challenge yourself at every turn, at every move that you make has to be a challenge towards yourself. Experiencing something new. And, movies are the same way. Finding a new director. I mean, if I hadn't waited, if I had allowed myself at 35, 36, however old I was, to let the 16-year-old me tell me that David Lynch wasn't worth investing in, I would never have experienced these movies. I never would have experienced Twin Peaks or Blue Velvet, and even Blue Velvet at 16 versus at 35, 36, 37, wherever I was. The maturity level of finding it makes it a different experience and makes it, sometimes you have to be ready for it. Bergman, I've never had a relationship that lasted a significant amount of time. But in watching scenes from a marriage like I did over the last 2 or 3 days, it's painful. It's painful to watch what people go through in this dramatization of the suffering and the struggle that it takes to maintain a relationship. And it's something that I want to talk to my married friends. I want to talk to my friends that are in relationships to say, is it really like that level of compromise? You have to see the movie. This is a one-sided conversation because you haven't seen the movie, but there are elements of how do you...
I've seen the documentary. I'm just kidding.
There you go. See the movie and we can talk about it, because especially going into this next chapter of your life, it might be interesting. Yeah, basically.
That was for you, Leslie. Wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge.
I mean, yeah, because it's kind of like, it's going to be a mirror. Either you're going to say like, wow, that's fucked up, that's not my life, or else you're going to say like, damn, this guy gets me.
Yeah.
So it's and what's in between. So it's that it's the stories that we tell ourselves. Episode 331, the man who shot Liberty Valance. The stories we tell ourselves. What really fucking happened. The stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell each other. Everything in life is a story. The story of Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt in the 80s with "I'm a Real American" is one thing. The story of Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt at the fucking Republican National Convention a week after Donald Trump's attempted assassination, where Hulk Hogan plays that role of Hulk Hogan, but in the context of Donald Trump and in the context of, let me tell you something, brother, what you gotta do when Trumpomania runs wild on you, that's a different story, and it reads different. It's a story of what the fuck is gonna happen when we've got Biden versus Trump, and you have people that are like, you know what, I'm not gonna fucking vote because I just don't like this story. I don't like this movie, right? I'm not gonna fucking, as Hunter S. Thompson, who did crazy shit and wrote about politics also, it's like, buy the ticket, take the ride, right? I'm not taking that ride. Fuck that. Okay. Let's tell the story that, okay, what needs to happen is Biden needs to be the wise leader, and there's questions about his age. Okay, now what happens if he steps aside? Okay, so then now we can compare him to Washington, and we can say, well, Washington, whether you think it's bullshit or not, whatever, or whether you fucking think that Biden is actually dead because you're an idiot. There's that too. And if I insulted you and you're listening, I insulted you and you're listening. And then there's the narrative of like, okay, now there's someone else, Kamala Harris, whatever the narrative is on her, whether it's the right wing narrative is like, okay, she's a diversity hire because they're already doing that, or worse, right? Or people are like, oh shit, like it's just someone new. It's just a fucking new, like, this is a new release movie. I haven't seen this one. I've seen when, like, okay, now she gets her own movie. Like, I've seen her in other roles, like, but I want to see her. I want to give this. Let's see how this is. Okay, can she carry the movie on her own? Okay, well, who's in the cast? Who's directing this? Okay, well, who knows? But all right. Some people are more energized. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. What are the fucking stories? Everything is optics. Everything is painted in a certain way. The stories that we tell ourselves about fucking how amazing was it when we had to fucking wait for the bus, right? Not really. But I used to ride the bus a lot and the trains, but I used to like to be able to just sit there and read. If I had to go on a long ass fucking if I had to take an hour to go fucking, it sucked to wait for the bus. But once I got the app, if I still wanted to take the bus and I got the app and I could say, the bus comes at this time and it's 5 minutes late, I can just step out, go to the thing, boom, get on, open a book, read, hang out, fucking get off, boom, boom, boom. Totally different story.
Yeah.
John Wayne,
yeah,
one story. Jimmy Stewart, another story. John Wayne, Orange County fucking airport, fucking Republican, racist asshole. Well, that's one story. John Wayne, Mr. America, that'll be the day. That's another story. Like, what are these fucking stories? I look at Jimmy Stewart. We were talking last episode about in
Vertigo.
In Vertigo, there's that Jimmy Stewart, and then there's the Jimmy Stewart of fucking It's a Wonderful Life. You know, when the real Jimmy Stewart, please stand up. Well, there is no real fucking Jimmy Stewart. Because you could open up 2 fucking biographies of Jimmy Stewart, and yeah, there's going to be like, he was born on this day, and he died on this day, and he did this, and he did that. But in that sense, there is an aspect of like what is true. Because while we have fact, we have like gravity and we have fucking like the laws of thermodynamics and all that shit. Like when it comes to media and when it comes to language and when it comes to cinema and culture and history, it's all fucking printing the legend. So you have a simple fucking cowboy movie, but wrapped in all of that is the story of fucking media, the story of like stories. Hey, did you hear about Monique? Did you hear what happened? No, what happened with Monique? And then now, here we go. And it could be a lie. Really? Yep. Straight up. I saw it. You know, whatever. That's what we do. That's what we fucking do in this show. Did you assholes hear about this movie about a bunch of people that go to this religious community and pay a fucking horrible price for it because they fucking they unwittingly got caught up in this cultural sacrificial thing? Midsommar, episode 332. You hear about that?
Remember
some
that?
people have, some people haven't. Right? We did that. Interesting film.
Promising director too. That was the thing. It was like a director who had probably a sophomore effort after Heredity.
Right.
A film that I loved.
Hereditary.
Was it Hereditary? Okay. Toni Collette, someone that I have gushed over on numerous episodes in the past. I don't know what it is about her. She captivates. You have that. You have oh my God! You just have so much potential. It's Ari Aster is a filmmaker that gives you a little bit of hope because you go see something that is different, that is new, that takes chances, that is challenging. I mean, who the fuck would think to make a horror film, probably the brightest lit horror film ever made, to shoot it in, is that Sweden or Switzerland that it's supposed to be? I can't remember.
It's probably Sweden. It's in a Scandinavian country.
It's okay. So a Scandinavian country that 18 hours of sunlight sensibility that happens different times of the year. I just thought it was incredible. I was blown away by the weird shit that was going on in that movie. And once again, my fallback, crazy white people shit. But I'm not dismissing what I say. It is.
But it is kind of painted as like, okay, this movie, it goes back to that thing of like, if we were to do that,
mm-hmm.
and we were to name our episodes just based on these simplistic knee-jerk reactions to films, that may be a good candidate for that. Stupid white people get killed by crazy white people. I mean, and it's more than that, because then someone goes, "Hey guys, number one, you're racist. I cancel you," but we don't even exist on that level. Number two, like, and it's not everyone who dies is white, and of course, I think it may be the black guy that dies first. Perhaps. You know, like in keeping with the tradition of fucking, like, if you want to talk about that, right? Of the tropes of horror. The point is, you can just easily do an ignorant, knee-jerk, okay, crazy white people shit. Obviously, it's so much more than that, because it's kind of like, this is beyond what we think it is. This is beyond, as is everything. If you go back to the Malcolm X, angry black guy, angry black man. Angry black man dies. Clearly, Malcolm X was much more than that. We're more than just the simple tagline of the man who shot Liberty Valance, right? But Midsommar, to see it, where it's just like, okay, we have this idea that it's kind of it's this folk horror thing. But then just the opening portion of the film where it's like, God damn, like this is just the beginning of the movie and it fucking went places real fucking quick. If you remember the opening of the film, it sets it up. It sets up the main character's whole fucking situation and condition. And it's like, wow. This is a horror film, and we just saw that. Where the fuck does this go from here?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Taking chances. That's what I mean. Well, you know, swinging for the fences and not being afraid of failing.
And by the end, where are we on that? You know, where do we sit in terms of what happens?
Sure.
It's a crazy film. It's really intense, and it's worth it. So that was a good one to watch. And it looks like we released it on the summer solstice of 2021.
Nice.
How clever. Paul Mooney, episode 333. Tell us. You've talked about him. You're going to talk about him in the future. Parental advisory, explicit lyrics, racism. Go ahead.
They say don't meet your heroes, but I was lucky enough to meet one of my heroes, one of the great cultural critics of an art form that that just held on to my life for the better part of 2 decades, and meeting him and knowing him was. It's hard to really convey the importance and the effect something like that can have on a person, especially at the age that I was, 24, 25 years old when I first met him, and when I first heard him around 13 or 14. You don't imagine that you're going to meet your heroes. You don't imagine that you're gonna work with them and that you're going to have conversations with them. Paul Mooney and I were never friends. In my opinion, you can't be friends with somebody that you admire on that level, because it's always going to be there's always going to be this strange kind of. It's not a power balance, but there's a mentor student kind of aspect to it. It's just you're meeting one of the greats. You're meeting somebody who's on another level. And when he passed away, I still knew people in LA that ran into him and that would speak to him or would speak to people around him, and I was told that he wasn't doing well. And it's difficult to accept the fact that the people that have influenced you so greatly are passing on, that they are as they say, not long for this earth. And I knew, so it was not a surprise when he passed away. And the text messages were going on all over the country with guys who were there at the Comedy Store. When I got to the Comedy Store in 2000, I had visited there in 98 or 99. I had met him that time. I had met him another time in New York at Caroline's. But it was at the Comedy Store where where he knew my name. He would talk to me. He would make it a point to talk to me. And it's a real boost to the ego. Number one, that I could meet and become friendly with a hero. but also watched them perform and perfect this act, this performance, these ideas that would come out of life experience, be filtered through his perception, and then find their way onto the stage. And it wasn't always clean and comfortable, and a lot of times it was bad. But when it was on point, my God, I saw some shit that I can't. I tell people today, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's fucking insane that he would say that." And I would share some of this with friends who I've introduced him to. I've introduced my friends to those albums, Race and Masterpiece. And there's a lot of people that only knew him from the Chappelle Show, Ask a Black Guy, RickRamos, and these characters that he played. But it was really affecting. It was really it took me a month. It took me a little over a month to record that episode. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I had a chance to sit down and talk, and hopefully other people who have listened to this show and didn't know who he was reached out and found something. Because that's all we really do here, is we talk about things that we care about. We give our perception on films, actors, directors, music, that art that has affected us. And I wanted people to know how much he meant to me. I wanted them to know how important he was in my life, but also how important he was in the world of stand-up comedy. I think the episode did that. At least I hope it did. I hope people walk away from it with an appreciation and an inquisitiveness of seeking out what he did. I don't think those albums are in print anymore, but you can find them on YouTube, and you can find recordings of him. You can find performances. You can find interviews. In some cases, he was a blowhard. In some cases, he exaggerated shit. He was somewhat bitter, some people would claim, but he was never not funny. It was always couched in comedy. He didn't take the Bill Hicks route of sometimes losing control. It was always funny. And I think that's the thing that I miss the most.
There's a story that I don't know if it was for that episode or maybe I'm fucking making it up, but there was a story where I guess you were walking down the street. And,
yeah. That was one of the greatest moments of my life.
Tell that story again.
I would work the door at the Comedy Store, and you would have to get there about an hour and a half before the show started. And they paid us $25, whether you were there for a 3-hour show or you were there for 10 hours. You got paid $25. I think it was either $20 or $25. I could not afford to park on the Strip. I couldn't afford to pay $10 or $15 to park on the Strip and then walk out of there with 10. And if you, after 6 p.m., you could park on the street on Fairfax, which was about a mile and a half east of the Comedy Store. So I would park on the Strip, and then I would walk to the Comedy Store, miserable as all fuck, scowl on my face, angry at the fact that I wasn't performing that night, angry at the fact that they were paying me so little, and just pissed off about how bad the fact that I was going to watch really shitty comics, and my ego wouldn't dismiss the fact that I should have been on that stage. So I'm walking to the Comedy Store. I'm walking on the north side of the street, past the strip, on the Strip, and I'm passing. There was a railroad car restaurant that served burgers and hot dogs. It was I don't remember what the fucking name of it. Carney's. It was Carney's. And I'm walking to the Comedy Store, pissed off, depressed, and I hear this rapping on a window. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I turn, and it's Paul Mooney and another of my favorite comics, Brian Holtzman. And they're sitting in the car eating. And they get my attention and they wave hello to me. And I waved back. And suddenly this big, stupid fucking smile came on my face. And I kept that kept me going for another week. It wasn't just, hey, there's Rick. It was, hey, that's one of us. I felt that's one of us. And they took a second out of their time, whatever conversation that they were having, to say, hey, that's that fucking Mexican that works the door. Let's say hello. And that was probably 20 years ago. Jesus Christ, that was over 20 years ago. And it was one of the greatest moments of my life. Yeah. That's one of the greatest
city life.
Yeah. It might seem simplistic to somebody, and they're like, really? That?
No, but that...
Yeah.
No, that...
For someone who doesn't understand, yeah, you know?
Look, I think you fucking... Look, I remember that story.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest moment of my life, but I hear your fucking story,
yeah.
and I put myself, you know what I mean? And I'm like, damn, that's... And in a sense, is that not what we're doing? Is like tapping on those moments that are... maybe not the greatest, but some of the greatest moments in our podcast life is tapping on that and being like, hey, if you didn't fucking hear it the first time, or it's been now fucking 10 years or whatever, think about going back and listening to this. Maybe you'll like it. Have you heard the one about Rick walking down the street and fucking Paul Mooney knocks on the window to get his attention? Well, who's fucking Paul Mooney? Who's Rick? So from there, we went to the island of Dr. Moreau. Brando, this fucked up, little nasty fucking movie that went to shit. The director, Richard Stanley, a friend of ours, he just posted not so long ago about he was watching a Richard Stanley movie, and he goes, what movie am I watching? This other film called Hardware that I'd like for you to check out. I'd like to, I haven't seen it in fucking years, and it's not the easiest to get a hold of. So we'll have to figure that out. But
there's always a way. There's always a way.
Oh, of course. Yeah, there's always a way. Richard Stanley was kind of on my mind because one of our friends and listeners and longtime fucking listeners just posted that. If you're listening, you know the fuck you are. I just posted that pretty recently, last week or whatever it was. So it's kind of like fresh still. But based on the Island of Lost Souls, this crazy David Thewlis, Val Kilmer, and Marlon Brando film with a lot of history and a lot of problems. Lost Soul is a documentary about what went wrong with it. We did that. We did from another director who's just as promising in horror as Ari Aster, Robert Edgar. We did Robert Edgar's The Lighthouse, episode 336. Another fucked up, really good film. Willem Dafoe, Robert Pattinson, Pattinson, from a couple years before, The Lighthouse, really good. From there, we went into...
Let's not be dismissive either. I mean, I called it one of the best films of 2019 and possibly the decade itself. Incredible performances by both. Pattinson is easy to dismiss because of his, good looks and his teen heartthrob kind of the way they sold him. But here's a guy that's
Yeah,
really
because of that
making,
fucking series.
yeah, but here's a guy that's really going out of his way to do challenging, interesting work, coupled with one of the great crazy actors of all. And I don't think he's crazy. I think he plays, he gives you performances. Willem Dafoe is one of the great wild-eyed actors of all time. I think he's incredible. I love him in this film, and it's the kind of thing that makes you want to seek out more of what he does and what he continues to do. Dafoe is exceptional in this film. The lighting, the cinematography, the framing, 119:1. It really is one of the great movie watching experiences of the last decade for me. I thought it was incredible.
Great film.
Yeah.
I know I said it was really good. Like that was maybe a little bit understated, but
sometimes it has to be understated.
It's yeah, because there are those people that as soon as you say something is amazing, they go fuck you.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it, but now I'm not going to watch it just to spite you. From there, we went into Tarantino's Hateful Eight, a film that you had been complaining about for a while.
Oh, I've been bitching and shitting on for a ridiculous amount of time. Since I don't know when it was released. Probably 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. We finally got to in 2021.
I think it's 15, yeah.
Was it 15?
On the write-up that you did, it says 15, so somewhere in there.
Okay, because I know he did a staged reading of it, and I thought that was 2015. But I guess it actually was shot, and it was 2015. We called it. Get to the point. The problems, excess, and failure of Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. I stand by that. I appreciate the film a little bit more now, but it's still an excessive. And we've talked about it, and eventually we will do that episode. We will do that Quentin Tarantino episode where we approach it even-handedly as well. Because I don't want to just shit on him for the sake of shitting on him, although that would be easy to do. But if you look at The Hateful Eight versus something like Jackie Brown, which in my opinion is his greatest film. I know you and I differ on that, but I think we're splitting hairs on that one. I think you have a director who at this point in his career in 2015 has been told that he's a genius so many times and he can do no wrong, that the excess is on screen. And it's style for style's sake. He's somebody that a lot of it works, but what is bad about the film is glaringly bad, in my opinion. And it was really it's the times that I've seen it since then. But I mean, that alone, multiple times that I've seen it since then, that's a testament to how conflicted I am about the movie. I've had to go back and watch it again a number of times to really understand what it is about it that I like, and what about it is what it is about it that I dislike.
That film to me is like it's like one of those burgers, like those huge burgers.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah.
That it looks like it's just big, and so therefore it's like, wow, I want that fucking thing.
Yeah.
And then you're eating it, and it has all this fucking, like, all this lettuce and all this stuff. And look, lettuce is great, but it has all this lettuce and other shit that, like, makes it look huge, right? And as you're eating, and all that stuff is falling away. And then by the end, you've eaten the fucking meat, the cheese, a little bit of tomato, a little bit of what, the lettuce too. But then there's all this, like, stuff that's falling on the plate that you never fucking, like, ate because you're, like, it was just filler. To make it look larger, or whether to make it look or because it is to larger than what's the actual meat of the fucking thing, right? That's how that is to me.
Yeah.
It is excessive. And look, there's nothing wrong with fucking excess, but this is a different kind of monster. And the you had always had issues with the aspect ratio, because you felt that you said it was a waste for this film. Go into that. Explain that briefly.
What I mean by it is that, okay, so the opening shots where you're scanning over the mountains, you're scanning over the snow, is beautiful in that respect. But so much of this film is based on an idea of claustrophobia. And when you go with a 2.75:1 aspect ratio, you make the screen too big. So it doesn't have that close confinement of and he's not the kind of director that knows how to shoot that. John Carpenter with The Thing can create claustrophobia in a widescreen aspect because he fills the screen with there's a sense of what's in the corner. I think that's the thing, is that Carpenter is able to use the screen and place things in it that draw your attention away, and the
he's framing.
Yeah, he knows how to frame. I don't think Tarantino does this as well, and it's sad because he has Roger Spottiswoode, one of the great cinematographers. I mean, the film looks beautiful; it's well lit, but the framing betrays the claustrophobia of the film. It doesn't have that sense of where's the next thing going to come from, because you can see too much. You can see too much coming at you. There's nothing hiding. There's nowhere for. The frame expands to a degree where you can see everything, so you're not wondering the way you would with a 1.85:1 or a 1.33:1 aspect ratio. Aspect ratio is very important in film because it like, if you take, for example, Robert Edgar's The Lighthouse, they're going for a style that looks like 19th century photography, which some people might claim is pretentious, but you have to understand the world that it's creating. And once you,
it's stylized.
Yeah, but it's also an understanding of the history of the world that it's depicting and the stylization that is being attempted. What are they going for? This is going for a grandness that is just not that it's just unable to achieve. I would have preferred a tighter, more compact screen. I would have liked things pushed together a little bit more, because it would have added to the discomfort. There's so much about the characters in this film that they're open to. There's room for them to move around, where everything should be on top of itself, and there should be a constant sense of danger that's just not available with both the framing and what Tarantino puts in that frame. Some films are able to do it. Ridley Scott does it with Alien, but if you remember, everything is so dark, and it's almost like there's framing within the frame. You're in a corridor, so you don't have the full frame. You have a 2.35:1 frame, but all of the action is taking place within a 1.85:1 because of the framing within. The walls, the chains that are hanging, that kind of shit. You don't have that with Tarantino. It fucks up the movie for me. Yeah.
You make a good case.
I try.
The next, we move to Soderbergh's No Sudden Move.
This was kind of troubling for me because I think No Sudden Move was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. But somebody on the level of a Soderbergh, Academy Award winning director for Traffic, led actors to Academy Awards with, Julia Roberts for Erin Brockovich. I think somebody else might have won Academy Awards for what he's done. He's a solid filmmaker. The fact that his films are bypassing cinema altogether and are going straight to streaming, I find that troubling. I would have loved to have seen this movie in a theater. And look at the cast: Benicio, Don Cheadle,
Ray Liotta,
Brendan Fraser,
mm-hmm.
And Bill,
looking very different.
Yeah. And then you have the great Bill Duke in. When you have directors who know how to use Bill Duke, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So
mm-hmm.
The troubling thing was that this is. Why is it that a great director like this is releasing only to streaming services? I find that
straight
disheartening.
To video, basically.
Yeah, it's the new straight to video, and I don't like it. But at the same time, the industry is changing. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. A great little noir set in that time period, and unabashedly unforgiving about the time in which it's set. There's a lot of racial and class politics in this film. I loved it.
I thought it was a good movie. I just don't, in hindsight, I don't really remember. I don't think it's a memorable film. Now, is that because I don't remember? Does it mean that it's not a memorable film? I don't know if I'm conflating those two things, and I do think they are different. But I don't remember. I remember some of the shootout stuff, and I remember a pissed off Ray Liotta, and a different looking Brendan Fraser. But apart from that, and certain other scenes, it's kind of like. I feel like it's one that just kind of slips through the cracks. It didn't, even something like The Limey that he did, 10 years before.
Oh, no. The Limey's like 20 years old.
20 years before. Yeah, because the Limey is the Limey is from the late 90s. Yeah. No, I misspoke. No, from like 20 years before.
Yeah.
Because we're talking 2020-ish to 20 years before. So even something like that, which is like a small movie, but it's more memorable, I think, than this.
Yeah, but why is it so memorable? Because it elicits a weird kind of it's a weird movie watching experience. It was a film that really played with a fractured timeline in a way that even Tarantino didn't attempt. It's so much. You have no idea what you are watching when you're watching The Limey, and yet it all makes sense, and there's a through line there, and I don't think there's ever a period in The Limey where you're watching it where you're lost in what's going on or when it's happening. But there is a point where you're like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Are we going back in time now? Are we jumping ahead?
I mean,
there's a
the through line is Terrence Stamp's Vengeance. That's the through line.
Yeah.
So I mean, with that being said, it's like that. There's what I'm getting at is that's more memorable to me than No Sudden Move. No Sudden Move, I think, is an understated film. It's got a great cast. It's a good film. But it's just not one of those ones that's like, okay, Traffic, boom, right? Sex, Lies, and Videotape, also smaller, but like, boom. Not the pop culture Ocean's 11 shit, but like, which is also remake, but this is just one of those. It's weird because Soderbergh is he's kind of off to the side. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the rebels on the back lot, but he also, if you look at his shit, even like something like Out of Sight, was kind of this '90s thing, but to the side. Traffic is this, whatever it is, early 2000, whatever it is, off to the side. Soderbergh's in a weird place. I think a filmmaker in general.
I agree with you, but I think that Soderbergh is the kind of director that if you discover him later, the rewards just keep on piling up in a way.
He's solid.
He's a solid director.
But his new shit isn't compelling to me the way the old stuff is.
But also, you're not the kid that you were when you saw those early films. You know, and I think that plays into it. I think that factors into it. I think he's still shooting on all cylinders. I think he's still making great film. And I think this is a film that you owe it to yourself to go back to and just watch again and have a good time with, and just remember. And you're like, oh shit, this was good. And I might be wrong. I haven't seen it in a long time. I might be fucking God, this isn't as good as I remember. But
it goes both ways.
It does. It absolutely does.
Because Out of Sight, I mean, like the teenager or whatever, the late teenager that I was when Out of Sight, I wasn't like super all about Out of Sight when that came out. So I wasn't like this youthful, oh my God, Soderbergh. Because there were Soderbergh films that I was like, okay, I think this is better than this. Again, I think Soderbergh is his own thing. And it's just one of those ones that, like, even the discussion of it being off to the side is like more than I think what I remember of the actual fucking film. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Well, what I will say is I remember more than the film. I remember having a great time watching the film, which makes me interested and excited about returning to it. So I remember walking out of it. I remember finishing it here going, God damn, that was good. That was a good time. I like that. The guy still has, the guy still knows how to tell a good story. So I was taken with that.
Yeah.
And I
don't even know what my reaction was it to at the time. You know, from
I think you liked it. I think we both really liked it. And we were just, you know, it was just a good movie. Just a good fucking time at the movies.
From there, we did Anthony Hopkins as the father.
One of the great performances that I've ever seen. And it's also one of those things where it depends on where you are in your life, because that movie grabbed a hold of me and wouldn't let go, and it was a hard movie to watch. That was powerful, and that confirmed.
Yeah.
Whatever I thought of Anthony Hopkins, it confirmed him as one of the great actors in all of cinema. I mean,
as if you didn't need more, right? And then he's adding on top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that was, yeah. And if you're of a certain age and you're now looking at, if you haven't already, your relationship with your parents. Mm-hmm. If that's a blessing to have had that, you know, not everyone, it's not always a blessing to have had your parents. It just depends on your situation. But if you're in one of those dynamics where it's like you find yourself now in that role reversal where you're like scolding your fucking parent or your parents, and you're like, why would you do that? Like, you think you know it all just because you've lived fucking like twice as long as I have. You know what I mean? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And you want to like ground them, and keep their social security check until they behave. It goes from that to like, now you start to see these other aspects where it's like, fuck, like, damn, like this person, you know, it goes from that into fucking, how the fuck did they put up with me? What the fuck? How did they do this? How were they able to like run this house while working and fucking doing all this, and then the brothers and sisters and the blah 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 and their parents and then blah blah, and then you start to see the decline, and you're going like, God damn, and you can see it like maybe it's your friend's parents, maybe it's your partner's parents, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's, you know what I mean, like it's a cycle, like you saw it with your grandparents, and now you're seeing this, and then you're like, fuck, and then it's gonna be me, and then blah blah. It's a heavy fucking film, and it's
not a good time. It's not a good time at all. But
with him and Olivia Colman, and it's just, and the way that it's edited, and you're going like, wait, in the sense that you're talking about the Limey, it's kind of like there are moments where you're going, oh shit, oh shit.
When you realize
the editing is great,
when you realize what is happening in the film, it's both like, it's a punch in the gut, because it's like, wow, shit, I didn't know anybody had the balls to do something like that. I never would have thought to do that. And oh my God, is this what somebody who is going through this shit would be experiencing? Is it that overwhelming? That movie, I'm an easy cry now, but that movie had me fucking in tears. That movie had me just breaking down. That was a difficult watch, because you see so much of what you're going through, what you will go through, and then what you will experience. So there's the parental aspect, the grandparent aspect, but then there's knowing that you're so many characters in that movie. You're Olivia Colman. You're the girl that comes in to help. You're the daughter. You're the son-in-law. And you're ultimately Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
And that's,
I mean, I you know, when I come to my mom's, between where I live and my mom's, and that's like, and around there is one of the video stores. Well, it's not there anymore. It's just the building is there. But whatever's there now is what's there now. But it's all this shit of childhood and all that, and where my friend used to live, his dad still lives there. I always drive by because and I see that it's the version of this film, because I'm like, just to check, just to look in that direction, and all I'm doing is just looking at the house and seeing, okay, oh, he's sitting outside, oh, he's this. It's I don't want to put my friend's business out there. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just it's one of those things where it's kind of like, this shit is more than just, it becomes more than just one's own story. It just becomes this thing of like, anywhere, at any time, you can just have this situation where it's like someone, they may not even be in trouble. They just may be walking down the street, but it's like reality is different. And so this film, talking about this film, or the mention of this film, is different from me now 3 years later than it was when I saw it. And it, you know, what a difference fucking 3 years makes. But it's there, and it's like, and now it has this personal element, because it's like, well, I'm looking to make sure that this person is, if I see them, okay, they seem okay, good, well, just that, something as simple as that, and it connects, and it's all going back to this. It's going back to the video store. It's going back to rapping on that window, to the moments of connection that mean something, and they're punctuated by these fucking movies. The next movie that we did was episode 341. It was Val Kilmer, and it was this kind of autobiographical ego project from Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer's had his health situations, And this is kind of him in his metaphorical voice, because literally what happened to his voice. Now, we kind of went back and forth because I think you took more of a kind of this kind of moral approach to it, where it's like, well, don't fucking cry about like what happened to your career because you fucking did that. Like, you have to fucking carry that weight. You have to fucking carry that cross. That's your cross to bear.
That sounds
Don't
like
make
me.
yourself into some fucking. Don't make yourself into this fucking martyr when we're supposed to feel sorry for you, because it's one thing to feel bad for you as to what happened health wise, but it's another thing to fucking where you alienated everybody you worked with. And it was kind of like that kind of approach, where you're like, this is not really, this is just a vanity project.
Yeah.
And my thing was like, yes, I agree with what you said, but because it is from his perspective, that's what you're going to get. And for whatever reason, he didn't get into, he didn't bring in all those other elements of, look, this is what happened to me, this is my life, and this is how I fucked up. He didn't really approach it that way. And since it is his project, like, that's what it is. Like, that's what he decided to do, and that's fine. Is it incomplete because it's missing all those things? Yes, of course. But I guess my thing was like, well, let's look at what's missing from the film. And then now that we look at what's left, what's actually in the film, let's approach what's in the film based on what's in the film, not based on what's not in it. So we had a disagreement about that, but it was interesting. Love him or leave him or whatever the fuck. Like, it was just uninteresting. And then you haven't seen this, but going to the
Maverick
now with Maverick, Top Gun Part 2. There's more of that kind of looking at him the way maybe you're looking towards your friend's dad's house, with just a sense of like, let me just drive by and like, okay, like you're just checking, like, for whatever that means, whatever little you can do. There's more of that weight to it, but that's that, and Val Kilmer is Val Kilmer.
Well, that's the thing with watching something like this. I think it's an interesting film. I enjoyed watching it. The complaint that I have is that there's so much of it that I didn't like the way he viewed his own life. I took issue with him personally, which is somewhat hypocritical, because Hail Hail Rock and Roll does pretty much the same thing with an even more bombastic and polarizing figure. But it's more compelling. And everything that you said, the pieces that are missing, the fact that they are missing alludes to what else is there. So in a weird way, you're watching a film, but you're also creating a film in your head of all the missing pieces.
Yeah.
This Val film does that to a degree. You have him telling his story, which is going to be problematic. And we talked about this with any time the subject matter is involved in the production of the film. The film itself is going to be problematic, because they're not going to show the warts. If you watch Straight Outta Compton, I think this was the biggest issue I had with that film, is that Dre and Cube are painted as the heroes of the story that they're telling. Eazy-E gets shit on, and Jerry Heller gets shit on in a way that I think is unfair. So the point is that I don't trust a film I don't trust a film where the subject matters are producing the final product.
it's too autobiographical. It's too much of a stamp. It's too
Yeah.
much of a because then it goes back to Liberty Valance. It's like print the legend.
Yeah. You almost want to be like,
Well, I mean,
I was there when you kicked the bitch in the bathroom. You left that out. So,
have you read the book Radical Honesty, or have you heard of it? The movement or whatever.
I'm not familiar with it.
So there's this psychologist named Brad Blanton, or some therapist, whatever his name is, Brad Blanton.
Yeah.
And he wrote, I guess, like around 30 years ago, he wrote this book called Radical Honesty. And his thing is, you should always be completely honest all the time with everyone, because what leads to human misery is dishonesty, and that takes the form of A, like lying, and B, withholding the truth. So not only lies that are lies of omission as well. So there's like, you can go watch like clips of him. Like there's this interview. Whenever it was that I read this book and then I started looking for clips and interviews, and I was like, whoa, like this guy is fucking radically. I mean, to that point, the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's like, there's also a stylistic element to it, because it's kind of like, you say they're not going to want to show the warts. Well, some people like to show the warts.
Yeah.
The G.G. Allens of the world are like, no, I'm going to fucking do a punk show and I'm going to cut myself and I'm going to shit all over the stage and you're going to watch me. And if you can hang, that's cool. If not, fuck you. Brad Blanton in his and literally shit on the stage, G.G. Allen, which literally shit on the stage. Brad Blanton is like, my name's Brad Blanton. Not verbatim, but pretty much. They go, can you tell us about yourself? Yeah, my name is Brad Blanton. I'm a therapist. I wrote a book called Radical Honesty. I believe this. I'm this however many years old. I've been married 5 times. I've had about 3,000 sexual relationships. I've had herpes, gonorrhea, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I've had herpes for about 20 years now. I've had homosexual relationships 5 times. And he goes into all this crazy shit.
This motherfucker ain't hiding shit.
But then that also becomes, that's that legend. Where
but that's like, also kind of like hiding in plain view as well, putting it all out there. So I don't know. I mean, that's weird.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it's kind of like, if Val Kilmer were that guy, would you be saying like, hey man, leave something to the imagination?
Maybe.
Who knows?
Perhaps.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, well, Val Kilmer's fucked when it comes to that, because
you can't.
RickRamos ain't happy.
Yeah, well, all I know is it's all Rashomon. It's always Rashomon.
Right. Print the legend.
Always. Yeah.
From there, we went into City of God. Brazilian film.
One of the great films. One of the great films of my lifetime. I say that without reservation. That's a great film. That's crazy.
That's you're making some bold endorsements here.
I'll fucking say it right here, right now. I'll step up to that plate. City of God is a film that in 50 years people are going to remember. They're going to be like, I saw this fucking crazy Brazilian slum film. It had its problems, but Jesus Christ, did it capture a world in such unashamedly, like it was so. I don't know how you could live in a world like that. I don't know how people survive that world. The favelas.
And so many people do. And I mean, like, people around the world live in certain types of conditions, but it's like with violence and all this other shit. But then there's to see a film that's shot that beautifully and to see these moments where it's like, and to see where it's these universal values that are like human values, not just, I mean, there is also like power, what motivates people, power, money, because also ultimately it's like resources, all this shit, yes.
Yeah.
But then when it just also comes down to it, it's like these human things that we fucking always write songs about: love, fucking friendship, blah, 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 blah. And to see that in this beautiful Brazilian backdrop, and it's on the one hand corruption, violence, death, power, racism, and on the other hand, and betrayal. It's one of those things that you don't have to live in a Brazilian slum, or a Brazilian shanty town to get it. You can live in Beverly Hills or in Brentwood or wherever the fuck, and it's like you're dealing with the same shit in your own fucking like version of it. In the fucking hellhole that is that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But not, at the same time, not to diminish the socioeconomic fucking struggles that are going on in the favela, because they show those, and you see them. And this film is a masterpiece, and it's so specific, but it's so universal.
Here's the thing about the film that really, I mean, all of that is true. Everything that you just said. But also I would add to it, it is never a pandering or simplistic film. It never makes excuses. It never goes out of its way to make you feel sorry for the people that are depicted in this world. It's not preachy. It's not overly dramatic. The drama comes out of I think it's probably an amplified neorealist look at that world. And when I say neorealist, I think you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the traditional Italian neorealist, De Sica and Antonioni with the Open City trilogy, Umberto D and Bicycle Thieves. This is a film that doesn't make excuses. It doesn't pander, and it doesn't try to make you feel bad for the people and the lives that they live. It is a depiction of that world, and it does so beautifully. I think that's the thing that I think it's unapologetic. It's not saying, oh, what were these? It doesn't make excuses for the actions of the characters. It presents it as a way of life. And it challenges you to really understand and come to terms with who you are in relationship to the film. Because I've never experienced anything like life in those slums. I can't imagine what it must be like to live there. But I have a pretty good idea of it based on this film. It's sad that this exists in the world, but it's also one of these things where it's like, God damn, there's people who live like this, and they're not beaten by it. It's a very inspiring
you may not
film.
have lived. You may not have lived in that world, but you know the drama. You know drama. We all know fucking drama, and that's what it is. Now let's finish in terms of the socioeconomic and the fucking all of that, and the Pimp a Legend. Let's finish out this episode with and come back to some things that we skipped over for next time. But Jordan Peele, we took a look at Jordan Peele. We took a look at Us, which came out second, and then we looked at Get Out second, but that had come out earlier. This episode with Ari Aster, Edgar, Jordan Peele, three horror. I mean, to put them in that box, three horror guys that are redefining, that are regenerating the genre.
Sure.
Jordan Peele, I think, is to me, he's doing the most important work that I've seen in a long time, in terms of both the horror, but also the cultural critique that happens inside of horror. he's and his work, I think, is not his other Us, and later on we'll talk about the other film, but Nope.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Get Out was his strongest, the breaking out of the box. But still, I think his work is super important. I think he's super smart. I think he's able to do what Tarantino started doing, but more meaningful. What do you think?
I think he's an incredible filmmaker. I was dismissive of Get Out the first time I saw it. I talked about that on the podcast, but it was a film that stuck with me, and it was a film that had ideas in it that made me want to go back. It's every once in a while I don't connect with the film, but there are elements of the film that won't leave me, and thus I find myself being forced to go back to the movie. And on the second viewing, I really got Get Out. I really understood it. I thought it was posturing. I thought it was like, oh, this is braggadocio in a certain way. But when I watched it again, I was like, okay, yeah, this is what it is. Us, I thought Us was a little bit too similar to Get Out in style, and definitely not as good. So it was a failure on that part. I liked a lot of what they did, but ultimately it didn't work for me because it just didn't scare me. It didn't freak me out. It didn't force me to think. Nope, which we'll get back to, which we'll go to at some point, because that makes an appearance, reaffirmed the brilliance of what Jordan Peele is and is capable of. So, I mean, here you have three good films, because Us is a good film. It's just one that I don't particularly care for.
Yeah, really I mean, it had a lot to say, but it's not necessarily.
It didn't captivate.
Some of the ideas are bigger than the film.
Yeah. Not a bad film, just not one that is as successful as I would like it to be. But I think you're right. Jordan Peele is probably one of the 5 most important directors working today.
The others being?
I would say
Do you have
Eggers.
them in mind?
I would say Eggers. I would say, God. No, I'd have to really... I'll come back with a list at the beginning of the next episode. Because I got to pare it down. I got to get them all in line. I got to figure out exactly who Ari Aster, Eggers, Jordan Peele. Also the problem I'm having though is that I'm not going to movies the way I used to. So I'm not seeing new movies the way I was. I have to start making a concentrated effort to see new things, new directors. I need to start exploring who's out there. I mean, I'm still stuck in the Scorsese, Coen brothers.
Yeah, you're still at the video store.
Yeah,
that
I'm going back to the favorites. I watched Killers of the Flower Moon 2 weeks ago. I'm still with the comfort foods, the ones that I love. And in a weird way, it's stopping me from experiencing. I'm not following my own advice. Yeah, I'm trying new meals out, but I'm not trying out new directors. I need to get back onto that. I need to get back on that bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, part of this, just going back in terms of looking at what we did, it's also, it's to congratulate ourselves and pat ourselves on the back and say, like, oh, amazing. Good job, Joe. Amazing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of like, this is also a jumping off point where it's like, oh, shit. Like, remember, Jordan Peele, he might have Egger has a new movie. His Nosferatu is on the horizon.
Yeah.
So that, there's that. Jordan Peele is supposed to come out with a new film. Who's going to be in that? What's that going to be about? I'm fucking excited about that.
Me too.
We started this year, not the year of this thing that we're doing now, but the actual year, 2024. We're in 2024, right?
Sure.
We started with fucking Alien, and pretty soon, Alien.
Romulus.
What is it? Romulus? Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
That one's going to be out pretty soon. So it is this thing of like, you're in that fucking car and you're looking back, but you're looking forward, looking to the side, checking your blind spots, and fucking keep the wheels turning. You know what I mean? Like, this episode we started with the video store, and so much of the video experience was horror. Those horror films fucking prominently placed, going through, Print the Legend and all those themes to get to Us and Them, we called the episode. Jordan Peele's look at society, culture, film culture, all of it. And who the fuck knows what's going to come, but it will be interesting. It will be scary, and we will be tuning into it. buymeacoffee.com/watchRickRamos. buymeacoffee.com/watchRickRamos. This one goes to Cornelius Burrows once again. Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Thank you all for taking the trip back in time with us to the video store, to the horror store, to the memory store. Till next time.
Bye-bye.